Hi everyone, so in this video I'm doing an acrylic painting and it's something a bit more realistic than usual. Here's a photograph that my sister took and I'm going to be painting it with acrylic paint for my mom for Mother's Day. And I already gave it to her. Mother's Day was on Sunday, May 14th, and she wanted, my sister likes doing photography, so she wanted my sister to take a picture and me to paint it, and then she would have them side by side just as like a gift from both of us. It's kind of like a joint gift, and we thought that was a really good idea, so we decided to do it. And I'm using some cheap acrylic paints. I've used them a lot in the past. I haven't had any problems with them. Even with the light fastness, I painted a picture of my dog a few years ago, and it's been hanging in on a wall that's usually exposed to sunlight, and it still looks pretty good, so I use these paints. But eventually I do want to get some thicker acrylic paints. Even though I like using the liquidy ones, I really like using the liquidy paints because I just find they can blend better, but they do dry really fast. I know that acrylics dry fast normally, but I feel like these ones might dry even faster because of how thin they are. But I like working with thin paint, so it kind of works for me. If I could find like a better quality paint that feels the same as these paints, that would be good, but I haven't had any problems with these. They're just from the dollar store and also Michael's, and they're like usually $1 to $2 a tube. And sometimes you can get really big tubes for like $1. For the background, it was kind of difficult because I was trying to make it look blurry like it is in the picture, because the focus is on the flowers and the background is all blurred out because it's not in focus, and I wanted to make it look blurry, but I still want it to kind of have some texture to it, so I wanted to incorporate some different kinds of brush strokes and some different colors, and it ended up looking more purpley than the photograph. I think it's because of the paint that I was using, because I didn't have a dark enough blue or red to mix in with the colors to make it dark, because if you add black to your colors while you're mixing, then it kills the color and it becomes gray. And black can darken things to a certain extent, but like you don't really want to add black to really light colors to darken them because it makes them turn gray. If you have a really dark purple or blue and you just need to be a little bit darker, adding some black can work because it can make it darker, but it always kind of desaturates the color, so you have to keep that in mind. So I didn't really use any black in this painting because I could get them as dark as I wanted. Well, maybe not quite as dark as I wanted them to be, because usually when you send stuff off to get printed at like Walmart or anything like that, any store that can do prints for you, it always comes back looking a little bit darker and with more contrast. So comparing my painting to the print of the photograph rather than on the screen or the print that I just printed off onto computer paper here for reference, it looks kind of washed out. And I didn't want it to look photorealistic. I wanted it to look like a painting. I wanted it to have some character to it, so I purposely didn't do it exactly the same as the painting, except for the flowers. The flowers are pretty similar, but I still kept in some brush strokes, and they're not exactly the same shape. Like if you quickly switch your eyes from the painting to the photograph back and forth, you can see the differences in the shapes of the flowers. So it's not exactly the same, but I made it look really similar, and I wanted to like kind of give it my own style. So even with doing realistic things, you can still add your own style into it. It's all in the colors and the brush strokes and just how you blend all the colors and shapes together. That's just basically determines your painting style. And I know I don't use acrylic paints on my channel that much because I just haven't really used them for something more cartoony like I usually draw. I've only ever done them with realistic things, so I definitely want to incorporate acrylic paints into my everyday style. But here's just a video showing the kinds of things I usually do with acrylic paints. I've done some paintings of dogs before, like my dog and a few commissions of other people's dogs, and I've painted animals on rocks before. And of course I've used acrylic paint for like crafting or like painting flower pots and stuff like that, but I've never really done it with something more stylized, and I want to do that soon, so let me know if you like that idea, because acrylic paint, you can just, if you mess it up, you can paint over your mistake, and that's what I really like about it. So I knew I wanted to do the background first, because it's kind of hard to do the foreground first and then paint the background around the foreground, because it's just, you can always kind of tell that you did the foreground first because you can kind of see the direction of the brush strokes kind of outlining the foreground stuff. So doing the background first can help with that, to make it kind of look more natural and blend more. But even though I did the background first, I still, after I did the foreground, I realized that the background didn't really contrast enough with the foreground, meaning the flowers, that's the foreground. So I had to like change the background when the foreground was already painted in, and that kind of got a little bit difficult, and I struggled with the background a lot in the beginning. I like the way I did the tree line at the top there, but the bottom where it's kind of blurry with all the blurred out trees and the foliage, I kind of struggled with that at first, especially getting the colors right and getting it to look neat while still being textured and while still having brush strokes and still looking like it's kind of blurred. And for most of this painting, I used just a regular paintbrush. It's a round one, let's see what it is. It's Artist Loft brand. It's like a round brush, size 4, because I know brush sizes can change depending on the brand, because a size 8 in one brand and a size 8 in another brand can be completely different sizes, which is kind of dumb, but I guess that's how it is. So that's the brush I'm using, and I never really treat my brushes that well, so I like to use cheap brushes, and I really can't see a difference between the cheap and the good quality brushes. And I know you're supposed to use, I think, synthetic brushes with acrylics, not real hair, because I think acrylics can kind of wreck real haired brushes. So I just use like cheap-ish ones. Like I never use anything that's over $5 a brush. I usually get them in value packs for like, I don't know, $6 for like 15 brushes. And then I just kind of pick out the ones that I like because I think that's just a better deal and it works for me. But one brush that I do want to get is a super, super thin, tiny brush for details. That's one I want to get because I just think it would speed everything up when I'm trying to like twist the brush and make the bristles come to a point so it's thin enough to do all the little details. Instead of doing that, you have a brush already thin enough for you, so I think that would speed things up for me. And I also want to use that for outlining drawings with ink, or, well yeah, ink, I guess that's it, and maybe some watercolor paintings too. And I'm kind of conflicted about what tape I should be using, because I used to use just regular green painter's tape for watercolor and acrylics and all that. Well, actually I never really used tape with an acrylic painting before, but for this one I used tape. I used to use the green painter's tape, and then I just got regular masking tape, which is really, really, really sticky, but it tends to have a crisper line and the color doesn't interfere with the color palette of the painting, because if you're using a green tape, it always looks kind of bad compared to the painting, and it can kind of mess you up and think that your painting looks worse than it does. Once you take off the green tape, then everything looks better. So I decided to get some regular colored masking tape, and it rips the paper so much more and it absorbs more water, so it kind of comes unstuck, but it's a crisper line and it looks better with the painting. So I'm kind of conflicted of which tape I should be using, but I think I'm just gonna go back to the green tape because it doesn't rip the paper as much. And I do stick it to my clothing to get little pieces of dust on it, but it still rips the paper. So I'm gonna go back to the green tape. I just think it works better. Maybe I'll keep using the masking tape, I don't know, but I'm thinking the green tape. I hope you enjoyed this video, seeing me work with acrylics. I want to incorporate it into more of my art on this channel in the future. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.